Bali trip was supposed to be the best week of my brother's life. I know that because he told me so approximately 14 times over the course of 3 months. I wasn't invited. Let me back up. My name is not important right now. What's important is this. I'm 29 years old. I work as a tax accountant at a mid-size firm in Austin, Texas, and for as long as I can remember, I have been the person in my family that things get quietly handed off to. Not in an obvious way. Not in a, hey, can you help us move this couch kind of way. In a slower, more invisible way, the kind where you don't notice it's happening until you're standing in your kitchen at 2 a.m. on a Thursday, staring at your laptop screen, watching your entire financial identity dissolve in front of you like sugar in hot water. But that comes later. My brother. I'll call him my brother because that's what he is, though some days the word feels like it belongs to a different language, is 34. He has never held a job for longer than 11 months. He cycles through industries the way other people cycle through Netflix shows. Landscaping, real estate licensing, some kind of dropshipping thing that lasted exactly 1 season. He's charming in the way that certain people are charming, which is to say he's very good at making other people feel like the problem when things go wrong. Our parents have always thought he hung the moon. I don't say that bitterly, or at least I try not to. It's just a fact, the way some facts are just facts. Gravity, taxes, the way gas station coffee always smells better than it tastes. My brother is the one they call first, the one they fly out to visit, the one whose apartment they helped furnish when he moved to Denver, and then again when he moved back, and then again when he moved to Scottsdale. I am the one they call when the furnishings need to be paid for. I had built a good life in Austin, quiet mind, paid for with my own money, a 1-bedroom apartment with a balcony I actually used, a savings account I was proud of, good credit, the kind that takes years of boring decisions to build. I did not take vacations I couldn't afford. I did not lease cars I couldn't afford. I did not, to my knowledge, rent luxury villas in Southeast Asia in my own name without telling myself. That last one. That's the part that took me a while to process. Here's what I knew in early March. My brother had announced, with the energy of someone unveiling a national monument, that he was taking a milestone trip to Bali for his 35th birthday. 2 weeks. A private villa with a pool. Meals, excursions, the whole production. He had apparently met a woman. I'll call her his girlfriend because I suppose she was, who had connections to a property management company over there, and she had gotten them a deal on a villa that normally rented for something in the neighborhood of $4,000 a week. Our parents were going too. I found out via a group text that also included 3 cousins I barely speak to. The text was a photo of the villa. White walls, infinity pool, palm trees going gold in the afternoon light. My brother had captioned it, "Family Milestone. So grateful. Can't wait." There were 17 heart emojis. I was not in the group text. My cousin forwarded it to me separately with a question mark. I called my mother that evening. She answered on the second ring, already apologetic in that specific way she gets, the way that means she knew before she picked up that she'd done something she couldn't fully defend. It just happened so fast, she said. Your brother found the deal and we had to commit quickly. I'm not upset about not being invited, I said, which was mostly true. I'm asking if you actually have the money for this. A pause. Your father and I are fine. My parents have not been fine financially since approximately 2019. My father had a back surgery that cost more than they anticipated. My mother stopped working full-time around the same time. They had refinanced their house in Memphis once that I knew about, and possibly a second time that I suspected but couldn't confirm. The last time I visited, I noticed the stack of credit card statements on the kitchen counter had gotten thicker. Okay, I said. Just asking. You should come, my mother said, and her voice shifted into something softer, more coaxing. Your brother would love it. My brother would not love it. My brother would not love it. My brother tolerated my existence the way you tolerate a car alarm in another building. It's somewhere over there. It's someone else's problem. And eventually it stops. I can't, I said. I have the Kellerman audit coming up, and I can't take that much time off right now. This was true. I hung up feeling vaguely guilty in the way I always felt vaguely guilty the low-grade hum of someone who has been made over many years to feel that their absence from things is a form of selfishness. I went back to my spreadsheets. I told myself this was not my problem. I was spectacularly wrong. The first sign came on a Friday night, 5 days before they were supposed to fly out. My phone buzzed while I was making dinner. A text from my mother said, "Honey, small thing. The villa deposit has to be wired by tomorrow or they'll give it to another booking. Your dad's transfer is delayed from his investment account. Could you front $3,500 for 48 hours? He'll wire it back Monday, I promise." I stared at the message long enough for my pasta water to boil over. I knew the broken transfer excuse. I had heard versions of it before. Once when my brother needed help making rent in Denver. Once when my parents' furnace died and they didn't want to touch their savings. Once when my father needed to renew his car registration, and somehow the timing was always off with the bank. It was never a lie exactly. It was just a story with conveniently missing pieces. I typed back, "Sorry, I can't do it. You shouldn't be going if the deposit is a problem." My mother did not respond. My brother texted me 20 minutes later. "Wow. Really? They just needed a bridge for 48 hours. You really can't do one thing for this family." I didn't reply. I ate my pasta. I watched half of a documentary about deep-sea fish that had no relevance to my life and went to bed at 10:15 like the profoundly boring person I apparently was. I told myself it would be fine. They would figure it out, the way people who make bad decisions always seem to figure things out, temporarily in ways that create larger problems downstream. They left for Bali on a Tuesday. I know because my mother sent me a photo from the airport, her and my father and my brother and his girlfriend, all of them grinning in front of a departures board. My brother had his arm around our mother. He looked tan and easy and completely without concern. I liked the photo. I went to work. For 4 days, I watched their Instagram stories with the detached fascination of someone watching a nature documentary. The villa was genuinely beautiful, I'll give them that. White stone floors, a pool that seemed to extend directly into the jungle, outdoor showers with carved wooden screens. My brother's girlfriend posted 17 times a day. My mother posted photos of food. My father posted nothing, as usual, but appeared in the background of several of my brother's videos, holding a bintang and looking more relaxed than I had seen him in years. I noticed, around day 3, that my brother posted a video standing in front of a traditional ceremony in Ubud. In the caption he wrote, "Money well spent." I wondered whose money he meant exactly. I told myself it wasn't mine. On the 5th night of their trip, my phone began to ring at 11:47 p.m. I was asleep or mostly asleep in that light suspended way you are when you've been working long days and your body is tired but your brain keeps filing small things. My phone lit up the ceiling. I saw my mother's name and felt the particular dread that comes not from surprise but from recognition. I let it go to voicemail. It called again, then my father, then my brother, then my mother again. By the time I picked up, there had been 11 calls in under 8 minutes. Not dramatic, rounded numbers. 11, 7, 4, 3, the uneven distribution of actual panic. My father's voice was wrong, not loud. That was the thing that scared me. He wasn't yelling. He was very, very quiet, in the way that means the yelling has already happened and what's left is just wreckage. "Sid," he said. Something happened. The story came out in pieces and I had to reassemble it in real time the way you reassemble something that's been dropped. My brother's girlfriend, the one with the villa connection, had apparently not been entirely forthcoming about the nature of that connection. She was not, it turned out, a long-standing contact of the property management company. She had met the villa owner at a networking event 8 months ago and had oversold the relationship considerably. When they arrived, the villa was real, the amenities were real, but the deal she had promised was not. The rate she had negotiated was not $4,000 a week. It was $4,000 per person, per week, with an additional security deposit of $6,000 that had apparently been buried in the fine print of a contract my brother had signed without reading. They had been there 5 days. The total bill, due upon checkout, was going to be something close to $38,000. My brother did not have $38,000. My brother's girlfriend, it emerged, had approximately the same amount of money as my brother, which was to say very little. My parents had brought what my father called their vacation budget, which was $3,000 on a credit card, a number that now seemed like a rounding error. They were, in the clinical sense of the term, stuck. "Why are you calling me?" I asked. I knew why they were calling me. I wanted to hear him say it. "We need you to wire the money," my father said. "We'll sort it out when we get home. Your brother will." "I don't have $38,000, I said. "You have savings." "I have savings for me." "Sid." His voice shifted. "This is your family." And there it was. The sentence that had been used on me more times than I could count, deployed in the same tone with the same weight, as though the word family were a kind of override code that could short-circuit any individual judgment I might otherwise exercise. I took a breath. "Have you called the consulate?" "We don't need the consulate. We need the money." "Dad, have you contacted the villa owner about a payment plan? Have you called your credit card company about an emergency increase? Have you—" "We don't have time for all that," he said, and his voice went sharp. "They want payment confirmed by tomorrow morning, or they're calling the local authorities for failure to pay. Your brother could be detained, Sid. Do you understand that? Your brother could be held in Bali." I understood it. I also understood, in the quieter part of my brain that was still functioning while the rest of me was vibrating with adrenaline, that something about this conversation was off. Something about the way my father kept saying "your account" and "your bank" instead of "can you help us" or "can you wire from your savings?" He had said twice now, "your bank." "Dad," I said slowly, "how exactly were you planning for me to send this? You said wire from where?" "Just log in and authorize it. We already have the details." "What details?" A pause, long enough to notice. "The villa's payment portal. We sent you the link." I hadn't seen any link. I pulled the phone from my ear and checked my email. There was nothing from my parents. But there was something else. An email from a bank I did not recognize, flagged by my spam filter. A welcome email. "Welcome to your new Premier checking account." I felt cold. Not anxious cold. Just cold, the way you feel when you understand something you were hoping not to understand. I opened my credit monitoring app. I had set it up years ago when a coworker had her identity stolen through a data breach, and I checked it maybe once a month, the way you check the smoke detectors. Dutifully, expectantly finding nothing. The dashboard loaded. There were 2 alerts I had not seen. The first was from 11 days ago, a new credit inquiry, a personal line of credit opened in my name with an international payment processor. Balance $22,000. The inquiry had originated from an IP address registered to my parents' home in Memphis. The second alert was from 9 days ago, a rental agreement verification, also in my name. Property Villa Kembang Sari, CAG, Ganglu, Bali, Indonesia. Listed renter Sydney A. Mercer. My name. My credit. My signature forged on a document I had never seen, for a villa I had never set foot in, for a trip I had not been invited to. I sat very still for a moment. My apartment was quiet. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, someone was walking a dog, and I could hear the dog's nails on the sidewalk, clicking along at an ordinary pace, completely indifferent to the fact that my life had just rearranged itself. I put the call back on speaker. "Dad," I said. My voice was very calm. I noticed this about myself, the way you notice something from a slight distance. "Who signed the rental agreement for the villa?" Silence. "Dad, your mother we thought your credit would help secure the booking. Yours is better than ours. And the rate would be better with, you forged my signature." "We didn't forge. You signed a legal document with my name on it without my knowledge or consent." I was still calm. "You opened a credit line in my name. You used my identity to secure a luxury villa rental." My mother's voice came on the line then, the way it always does when the conversation requires a different kind of pressure. "Sid, we were going to pay it back. Everything was planned. Your brother said the villa was a good deal and we just needed to make the numbers work for the booking, and your credit is so much better than ours, and you never even used that account. That is not how identity works, Mom." "Don't be dramatic. If you just authorize the wire transfer then." "If I authorize the wire transfer," I said, "I am confirming that I am the renter of record. I am accepting responsibility for a $38,000 bill." I am paying for a trip I was not invited to, for a villa rented fraudulently in my name, using a credit line I did not open. Silence on the line. And if you don't, my father said, and his voice had gone very flat, very hard, the voice I remembered from childhood when things got serious, the contract is in your name. The debt is in your name. They will come after you regardless. Your credit will be destroyed. Your CPA license could be flagged. You're a financial professional. Cited 2-2. A fraud finding on your record. Stop. You have more to lose than any of us. I said stop. I heard my brother in the background. He wasn't even talking to me. He was talking to someone else, his voice low and urgent, and I caught the words, "She'll do it," and felt something close in my chest like a door swinging shut. They had planned this. Maybe not in every detail, maybe not with a spreadsheet and a timeline, but they had calculated, somewhere in the back of all their decisions, that I would do it, that I would pay, that my fear of professional consequences, of damaged credit, of being the person who let her family rot in a Balinese villa over a wire transfer, that fear would be enough to open my wallet. They had always known the combination to my guilt. They had been using it for years. I looked at my laptop screen. I looked at the welcome email from the bank I had never opened an account with. I looked at my own name on a rental agreement for a property I had never seen except in my brother's Instagram stories, where it looked gold and perfect and completely out of reach. 29 years old, sitting in my Austin apartment in pajama pants at midnight. And I was done. "I need you to put whoever is managing the villa dispute on the phone," I said. "What? Why?" "Because I am about to make a report and I want to make sure it is documented correctly." "Sid Diz, put them on or I hang up and you get nothing. Not a wire, not a negotiation, nothing." There was a scuffle on the line, voices, my mother saying something I couldn't make out, my brother's voice, suddenly louder, saying just let her talk to him, it's fine, she'll fix it. A new voice came on the line. Accented English, careful and professional. The property manager, not police. They hadn't gotten that far yet. He introduced himself. I will call him Mr. Weerawan because that is close to what I heard. "Mr. Weerawan," I said. "My name is Sydney Mercer. I am currently in Austin, Texas. I am recording this call. I want to inform you that the rental agreement for Villa Kembang Seri that bears my name was signed without my knowledge or authorization. I did not book this villa. I have never been to Bali. My passport will confirm I have not left the United States in 14 months. I heard my mother make a sound, short, sharp, and then my father said something, and then there was a burst of overlapping voices that I talked directly through. I am contacting my bank's fraud department tonight to flag the credit line opened in my name. I am also filing a report with the FTC regarding identity theft. The individuals present at the villa are responsible for any outstanding balance. I am not." Mr. Weerawan was quiet for a moment. Then, "I understand, Miss Mercer. We will need to proceed accordingly with the guests on site." "Thank you," I said. "I'm sorry you're dealing with this." I hung up. My mother called back immediately. I let it ring. My brother texted, "Are you serious right now?" Then, "You are unbelievable." Then, "Mom is crying." Then, from cousin I had not spoken to in 2 years. "What is wrong with you, Sydney? They are your family." I opened my laptop and called the fraud line for my bank. I spent the next hour and 40 minutes on the phone, calm, factual, documented. I uploaded my passport entry and exit records. I flagged the unauthorized credit line. I placed freezes at all 3 bureaus. I sent a written summary to the FTC portal. I forwarded everything to a personal email folder I labeled simply evidence. By the time I finished, it was past 2 in the morning. My coffee had gone cold. My phone had accumulated 31 additional messages that I had not read. I read them then because I thought I should know what I was dealing with. They were what you would expect. Some were angry, some were sad. One from my aunt was 3 paragraphs long and included the phrase "blood is thicker than water" twice. One from my brother was just the word monster and then nothing else. I sat with that one for a minute. I thought about whether it was true. I thought about the 9 years since I'd graduated college and started sending money home when things were tight. I thought about the $4,000 I had wired when my father's truck needed a new transmission. The $1,200 I had put on my card for my brother's security deposit in Scottsdale, which he had never paid back, and I had eventually stopped asking about. The countless smaller amounts, birthday dinners, emergency groceries, the cable bill that one summer that I had absorbed so quietly they had never even generated a conversation. I thought about the fact that they had gone to Bali without inviting me and had still managed to make it my problem. I went through my contacts. I moved methodically. My parents, my brother, his girlfriend, the aunt who had texted the cousins, I blocked them one by one, not in anger, but in the quiet way that you close windows at the end of a long day. Not slamming, just closing. The silence that followed was different from the silence before the calls. It was intentional. It was mine. I didn't sleep much that night. But I wasn't sad exactly. I was something more like emptied out. The way you feel after a fever breaks. Tired, clear, a little raw around the edges, but undeniably more yourself than you were a few hours ago. I went to work the next morning. I did not tell anyone at the office what had happened. I processed 3 returns and attended a meeting about Q2 projections and ate a sandwich at my desk at noon and went home at 6. 3 weeks later, I received a written notice from the credit bureau confirming the fraudulent account had been closed and removed from my record. 2 weeks after that, I got a voicemail, not from my family, but from the property management company's legal contact, confirming that the outstanding balance had been pursued through the guests directly and that my name had been cleared from the rental record. My brother, I learned through a cousin who still talked to me, had spent 2 additional days at the villa while the payment dispute was sorted out at significant personal cost and humiliation. His girlfriend had left before the dispute was resolved. My parents had returned to Memphis with maxed credit cards and a story that changed, I was told, depending on who was listening. None of them reached out to me for 4 months. When my mother finally texted a tentative, brief message, no acknowledgement of what had happened, just, "Hi, honey, hope you're well," I read it standing in my kitchen with my morning coffee and thought about it for a long time. I am still thinking about it. What I know is this: my credit score, when I checked it 6 weeks after everything happened, was 4 points higher than it had been the month before. The fraudulent inquiry had been removed. The unauthorized account was gone. My financial record was clean. I had earned that record one boring, careful decision at a time, over 9 years, and it was still mine. I saved the text from my mother. I didn't respond. Not yet. Maybe not at all. I stood at my kitchen window with my coffee and watched the neighbor's dog investigate a patch of grass with enormous dedication, and I thought about how strange it is, the things you grieve that you're not sure you should grieve, the family that was always more conditional than it looked, the version of love that came with a transaction attached. I drank my coffee, I went to work, I came home to an apartment that was quiet and paid for and entirely my own. That's the whole story. That's what happened. I've thought a lot about what made that night different from every other night I had picked up the phone and quietly paid whatever needed paying. It wasn't courage exactly. I'm not sure I'd call it that. It was more like clarity. The kind that only arrives when someone has finally pushed far enough that the fog burns off and you can see the whole shape of the thing you've been standing inside of for years. What my family did wasn't an accident. I want to be honest about that, even though part of me spent weeks trying to find a softer explanation. They didn't forge my name on a lease in a moment of desperation. They planned it. They looked at my credit score, my stable income, my track record of absorbing the mess and asking for nothing, and they made a calculation. They decided I was more useful as a financial instrument than as a person. And the saddest part is, for a long time I had agreed with them, not in words, in behavior. Every time I wired the money without asking too many questions, I was confirming their math. That's the thing about consequences. They don't arrive from nowhere. They accumulate quietly, one small decision at a time, until the weight of them becomes impossible to ignore. My brother had spent years making choices, impulsive, expensive, careless choices, and walking away from the bill because someone else always covered it. My parents had spent years enabling that pattern because it was easier than the alternative. And I had spent years funding all of it because I had been taught from a very young age that keeping the peace was my job. None of us arrived at that 2 a.m. phone call by accident. We had been building toward it for a decade. what I understand now, and I really do mean now, not in some tidy retrospective way, but in the ongoing, sometimes uncomfortable way of a thing you're still learning, is that protecting yourself is not the same as abandoning people. I did not hurt my family that night. I stopped letting them hurt me. Those are not the same action, even though they were treated as equivalent, even though the word monster showed up in my brother's texts like it meant something definitive. There is a version of strength that looks like endurance. That version says, keep going, keep absorbing, keep your head down, because that's what good people do. I lived in that version for a long time. I was good at it. But endurance without discernment is just exhaustion with a nicer name, real strength. The kind I'm slowly learning to recognize looks more like clarity under pressure. It looks like logging into a credit monitoring app at midnight when every instinct is screaming at you to just wire the money and make it stop. It looks like speaking calmly to a property manager in Bali while your mother is crying in the background. It looks like blocking 30 contacts not in rage, but in the quiet, deliberate way of someone who has finally decided that their own life is worth protecting. I didn't do everything right. I'm sure of that. There are probably 100 smaller moments where a different choice might have led to a different outcome. But I did the thing that mattered most when it mattered most. I told the truth. I protected myself, and I let the consequences land where they actually belonged. My credit record came back clean. 4 points higher, actually, once the fraudulent inquiry was removed. I keep thinking about that. 4 points higher. 9 years of careful, boring, unglamorous decisions reflected back in a number on a screen, intact after everything. That's mine. They didn't take it, and neither will anyone else.